You earned this, miss.
Sir, thank you so much. Tips go through management. That family left $50.
Company policy, sweetheart. Interesting policy. I'm Marcus Bennett, CEO.
This is a misunderstanding. You knew all along?
These girls make more in tips than they deserve anyway. Marcus Bennett froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. Across the diner, Diane Parker stood beside table 6, with a smile that did not reach her eyes. A folded $20 bill rested under a coffee cup. It had been left for Emily Carter, the tired waitress, who had just refilled 3 coffees, brought extra syrup for a little boy, and apologized for a kitchen delay that was not her fault. Diane looked around once. Then she slid the bill into the pocket of her black manager jacket. No receipt, no note, no split jar, just theft. Emily was wiping down the counter near the soda machine. She did not see it happen. Or maybe she did and had learned not to react. Her shoulders were tight. Her hands moved fast, too fast. Like a woman who knew one mistake could cost her the shift, the rent, maybe the food in her refrigerator. Marcus lowered his fork. Nobody in that room knew who he was. Not the construction workers eating eggs at the counter. Not the retirees in booth 3. Not the young mother cutting pancakes into tiny squares for her daughter. And certainly not Diane Parker. To her, Marcus looked like an ordinary man in a plain gray coat. 54 years old. Quiet. Alone. Another customer having breakfast before work. But his name was printed on every corporate document Diane had ever ignored. Marcus Bennett was the founder and CEO of Sunrise Table Diners, and he was sitting in booth 7 of his own restaurant, watching one of his managers rob an employee in broad daylight. The diner sat on Peachtree Road, tucked between a laundromat and a tire shop on the south side of Atlanta. The morning rush had a rhythm to it. Plates clattered. Coffee hissed. The bell above the kitchen window rang every few seconds. Bacon grease hung in the air, with the warm smell of toast and maple syrup. It should have felt like home. That was the whole reason Marcus built Sunrise Table. His mother had waited tables for 31 years in Georgia diners, just like this one. She came home with swollen feet, cracked hands, and a pocket full of small bills she counted at the kitchen table. Tips paid for school shoes, light bills, medicine, birthday cakes when money was thin. She used to tell him, "Baby, a tip is not charity. It is respect folded into paper." Now Marcus watched that respect disappear into Diane Parker's pocket. Emily Carter turned from the counter and approached his booth with a coffee pot in one hand. She was 32, though exhaustion made her look older around the eyes. A faded tan line circled her ring finger. Her brown hair was pinned in a loose knot that kept slipping at the back of her neck. "Everything all right with your eggs, sir?" Her voice was gentle, professional, tired but still kind. Marcus looked up at her. For a second he saw his mother. Not in her face, but in the way she stood. Weight on one foot, smile ready before anyone earned it. Pain hidden because customers did not come to breakfast to see your trouble. "Everything is fine," he said. "Thank you, Emily." She blinked, surprised he had read her name tag. "You need anything else?" "No, I am good." She nodded and moved to the next table. Diane's voice cut through the room before Emily had taken 3 steps. "Emily, table 9 has been waiting. Move faster." Emily turned at once. "Sorry, Diane. Sorry does not refill coffee." The words were sharp enough to make an old man at the counter glance up from his newspaper. Diane smiled at him like nothing had happened. Marcus watched. He saw the pattern begin to form. Diane gave Emily the largest section, the crankiest customers, the tables with children, substitutions, split checks, special requests. Then Diane stayed near the register, polished and still, controlling the flow of cash like a gatekeeper. At table 12, a retired couple left $8 under a napkin. Emily saw it. Relief crossed her face so quickly most people would have missed it. Marcus did not. She reached for the plates first, because that was what good servers did. Clear the mess. Smile. Come back for the tip after. Diane got there first. She lifted the napkin, palmed the bills, and said quietly, "Corporate wants us tracking cash tips this week." Emily stopped. Her lips parted. There is a new leaned closer. Her smile stayed in place, but her eyes hardened. "Are you questioning management?" Emily's face changed. Not dramatically, not loudly. Just a small collapse behind the eyes. No, Mom? Good. Then keep working. Marcus felt his hand tighten around the coffee mug. There was no new policy. He had written the tip policy himself. Servers kept their own cash tips. Managers were not allowed to touch them unless the employee requested documentation. Every location had signed it. Every manager had trained on it. Diane knew that, and Emily was too afraid to challenge her. A text buzzed on Marcus's phone, his assistant reminding him about the 9 o'clock board meeting downtown. He did not answer. At table 4, a young father paid with a debit card and left $5 in cash for Emily. His toddler had spilled orange juice twice. Emily had cleaned both spills with patience and a smile. Diane picked up the 5 before Emily even turned around. Marcus set his phone flat on the table, camera open, recording. Because one stolen bill could be denied, a pattern could not. The breakfast noise kept rolling around him, but Marcus no longer heard it the same way. Every clatter sounded harder. Every forced smile looked heavier. Every dollar mattered more. Emily walked past him carrying 2 plates and a pot of coffee, her hands steady only because she had trained them to be. Her tip jar near the service station sat almost empty. Rent was probably due, groceries probably low. A child was probably waiting somewhere for a mother who would come home tired and still ask about homework. And Diane Parker, assistant manager of Sunrise Table Diners, was stealing that child's dinner one folded bill at a time. Marcus looked at the company motto printed on the bottom of his menu. Good food, fair work, every person matters. For the first time in years, the words felt like an accusation. Marcus stayed in booth 7 until the coffee in his cup turned cold and bitter. He did not touch the rest of his breakfast. The eggs sat untouched. The toast hardened at the edges. A thin shine of grease cooled on the plate. Around him, the diner kept moving like nothing was wrong. Forks scraped, chairs slid, the kitchen bell rang. A woman laughed at the counter. Life went on. That was what made it worse. Emily Carter was being robbed in front of everyone, and the world still sounded normal. Marcus watched her cross the floor, with a stack of plates, balanced along one arm. She moved with practiced care, but every movement carried strain. Her smile, quick for customers, and vanished the moment she turned away. She was not lazy. She was not careless. She was not the kind of worker who needed managing with fear. She was surviving. At table 3, an older man in a veteran's cap raised one hand. Miss, could I trouble you for more coffee? Emily turned at once. Of course, sir. No irritation, no sigh. She warmed his cup and noticed the empty creamer dish beside him. I will bring you a few more of those, too. The man smiled. You read my mind. Emily smiled back, and for one small second something human came through. A tired woman being seen. A customer speaking to her like she mattered. Then Diane's voice snapped from the register. Emily, why is table 11 still waiting on toast? Emily's shoulders tightened. Coming. She hurried away before the older man could leave the $3 he was already reaching into his pocket for. Marcus saw Diane see it too. That was the chilling part. Diane did not move randomly. She watched tips the way a hawk watched field mice. Her eyes tracked bills, coins, jars, folded napkins. She waited for Emily to turn her back. Then she appeared. The old veteran placed the $3 beside his coffee cup. Diane crossed the aisle, picked it up, and slid it under her receipt pad. The veteran looked confused. Was that for the young lady? Diane gave him a bright little smile. Yes, sir. We pool certain tips during rush periods. Helps keep things fair. Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. Fair. The word almost made him stand up right then. But he stayed seated. He needed more than anger. He needed proof. He had run businesses long enough to know that truth without evidence could be twisted into misunderstanding. A dishonest manager could smile for cameras, cry for sympathy, and destroy the person she had already hurt. He kept recording. Behind the counter, Emily returned with toast for table 11. A teenage busboy named Caleb stood near the drink station, pretending to refill ice. He had seen Diane take the veteran's tip. His eyes flicked toward Emily, then away. Cowardice did not always look cruel. Sometimes it looked like a young man needing his paycheck. Marcus understood that too. Diane walked past Caleb and tapped the side of his cart. You missed syrup under table 6. I just cleaned it. Then clean it again. Caleb swallowed. Yes, Mom? Emily glanced at him with quiet sympathy, but she said nothing. Her silence had weight, not agreement, not weakness, a learned kind of caution. The breakfast rush thickened near 8. A line formed by the door. A mother with 2 small children waited beside an electrician in dusty boots. The cashier phone rang. Orders backed up. Diane stayed at the register, giving commands without lifting a tray. Emily, seat the front. Emily, refill booth 5. Emily, help kitchen run plates. Emily moved faster. Too fast. A coffee cup rattled on her tray. Her breathing changed. Marcus saw her press one hand briefly against her side, just below her ribs, before she forced herself back into motion. At booth 10, a young couple finished breakfast. The woman wore scrubs and looked like she had just worked overnight. She left a $10 bill under the ketchup bottle. For our server, she told Diane, who happened to be passing. She was wonderful. Diane's smile widened. I will make sure she gets it. She did not. She took the bill straight to the register, opened the cash drawer, then closed it without entering anything. The money disappeared into her jacket. Marcus zoomed in. His thumb stayed steady. His jaw did not. Emily came by his booth a minute later to check on him. She noticed the cold plate. Sir, I am sorry. Did something come out wrong? The apology landed harder than it should have. She was apologizing for eggs he had chosen not to eat while her own wages were being stolen across the room. No, Marcus said softly. You did nothing wrong. Emily paused. Something in his tone reached her. Not the words. The certainty. For half a breath, her face opened and Marcus saw how badly she needed someone to say that sentence and mean it. Then Diane called her name again. Emily blinked the moment away. I should get back. Marcus nodded. She left before he could say more. Near the service station, Emily checked the small plastic jar where her cash tip should have been. It held coins, 1 crumpled dollar, and a receipt someone had dropped by mistake. She stared at it for 3 seconds, only 3. But Marcus saw the calculation behind her eyes: gas, rent, groceries, medicine, a school lunch account. The private math of working people who lived dollar by dollar. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a folded paper. A bill notice, maybe. Or a note from her child's school. She looked at it quickly, then tucked it away when Diane approached. What is that? Nothing. Diane held out her hand. Let me see. Emily's face went pale. It is personal. Diane stepped closer, voice low enough that only nearby staff could hear, but Marcus's still caught it. Personal problems become work problems when they affect performance. Emily lowered her eyes. It is just a reminder from my son's clinic. Diane's expression did not soften. Then maybe focus on earning money instead of making excuses. The words hit Emily like a slap. Caleb froze beside the ice machine. Maria, another server, stopped mid-step with a tray in both hands. Even Tommy, the cook visible through the pass window, looked up sharply. No one spoke. Diane knew they would not. That was her power. Marcus stopped recording for 1 second, only to start a new file. His hands were calm now. Too calm. The anger had hardened into something cleaner. Purpose. He signaled Emily for the check. She brought it quickly, embarrassed by the delay he had never complained about. Marcus paid in cash. Then he placed a $20 bill on the table, flat and visible. Emily saw it. Her eyes filled with sudden relief before she could hide it. Thank you, sir. Truly. Marcus looked straight at her. You earned it. She smiled, small and fragile. Then Diane appeared behind her. I will handle that. Emily's smile died. Marcus stood up slowly, buttoned his coat, and walked toward the door without revealing who he was. Behind him, Diane picked up the 20. In the reflection of the glass door, Marcus watched her pocket it. Outside, the Georgia morning felt cold against his face. He reached his car, sat behind the wheel, and closed the door. For a moment, he did not start the engine. He only listened to his own breathing. Then he opened his phone and saved the recordings. One stolen tip was a violation. What he had just witnessed was a system. And Marcus Bennett was done having breakfast. Marcus did not drive to the board meeting. He sat in the parking lot of the Sunrise Table on Peachtree Road, with both hands on the steering wheel. staring through the windshield at the diner windows. Inside, Emily was still moving from table to table. Diane was still standing near the register like a queen guarding stolen gold. His phone rang. Sarah Lane, his executive assistant, never called twice unless something mattered. Marcus answered. "Where are you?" Sarah asked. "The board is already asking. Mr. Collins flew in from Dallas. Cancel it." There was a pause. "Cancel the board meeting? Move it to Thursday. Marcus, they will want a reason. Tell them a personnel issue requires my direct attention." Another pause. This one was softer. "Are you all right?" Marcus looked at the diner again. Diane laughed at something a customer said. Emily bent to pick up a dropped spoon from beneath a booth. "No," he said, "but I will be." He ended the call before Sarah could ask more. For a long moment, he heard his mother's voice in memory. Not dramatic, not saintly, just tired and true. "Watch how people treat folks who cannot fight back, Marcus. That tells you who they are." Evelyn Bennett had spent most of her life in white shoes and a waitress apron. She worked breakfast shifts, dinner shifts, double shifts when the rent climbed and the car needed repairs. She taught Marcus that work had dignity even when bosses did not. She taught him that a clean table and a warm cup of coffee could carry kindness if the person serving it was respected. Sunrise Table was supposed to be built from that lesson. Now a manager in his own company had turned it upside down. Marcus started the engine and pulled out of the lot. He did not go downtown. He drove home. His house sat in a quiet neighborhood north of Atlanta, shaded by old oak trees and guarded by nothing more than a low brick wall. Inside, the rooms were neat, warm, and silent. He went straight to his closet. The gray coat came off. The pressed shirt came off. The polished shoes stayed by the door. He pulled on faded jeans, an old flannel shirt, work boots, and a Braves cap that had seen better summers. He stood in front of the mirror and studied himself. Without the suit, without the watch, without the posture people associated with money, he looked like any man stopping in for breakfast before a repair job. Not invisible, just ordinary. Ordinary was useful. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out the employee handbook, the original copy, the one with his handwritten notes in the margins. He turned to the section on gratuities. The language was clear. Cash tips belonged to the employee who received them. Managers could not collect or redistribute tips unless a written tip pool had been approved by corporate and acknowledged by staff. Retaliation for tip complaints was grounds for immediate termination. He read the lines twice. Then he called his lawyer. Lydia Grant answered on the second ring. "Marcus, I assume this is not social. I witnessed a manager stealing tips from a server this morning." Silence. "How direct?" "I recorded her pocketing cash from several tables. She used fake corporate policy as cover." "That is wage theft," Lydia said. "Depending on the amount and pattern, it may be criminal. You need clean documentation. Multiple incidents, dates, times, video if possible. Witnesses if they will talk. I have some video. Get more. Do not confront her yet if the employee is vulnerable. The manager may retaliate the moment she feels exposed." Marcus looked down at the handbook in his lap. "She already has them scared. Then build a case strong enough that fear has nowhere to hide." Those words stayed with him. By mid-afternoon, Marcus had mapped out the next week on a legal pad. Different clothes, different times, different booths, cash payments, clear views of the register, tip jars, and service station. He wrote Emily's name at the top of the page, then underlined it. Not because she was evidence, because she was a person. That distinction mattered. The next morning, Marcus returned at 6:45. The sky was still pale over Atlanta. Delivery trucks growled past the curb. The diner windows glowed yellow against the gray street. Marcus wore work boots, a faded cap, reading glasses from a drugstore, and 2 days of stubble. The bell above the door rang. Emily looked up from wiping menus. "Morning," she said with the same practiced warmth. No recognition in her eyes. "Good, just one today?" she asked. "Just one." She led him to a corner booth near the service station. Perfect sightline, register on the right. Tables 5 through 12 ahead, Diane's office door visible past the kitchen. "Coffee? Please." Emily poured it. Her hand looked steady, but Marcus noticed the small bandage around her thumb. A diner burn, probably. The kind workers ignored because bills did not wait for pain. "Breakfast special is eggs, bacon, and toast," she said. $7.99. Sounds good. She smiled faintly. Best deal in the place. When she walked away, Marcus set his phone beside the napkin holder. The camera faced the register. To anyone else, it looked like a man charging his phone while he ate. Diane entered at 7:10. Her auburn hair was perfect. Her lipstick was fresh. Her manager jacket hung crisp over a white blouse. She passed Emily without greeting her. "You are late on side work. I finished the coffee station. Then check the bathrooms. And stop hovering around customers. It looks desperate." Emily lowered her eyes. "Yes, Diane." Marcus felt the room tighten around that answer. The first theft came 12 minutes later. A nurse in blue scrubs left $8 for Emily and hurried toward the door, exhausted from a night shift. Emily was carrying plates to another table. Diane crossed over, lifted the bills, and tucked them beneath her clipboard. Clean, quick, practiced. The second came at 7:35. A retired couple left $15 after Emily helped the husband cut his pancakes because his hands shook too badly to manage the knife. His wife touched Emily's wrist and whispered, "You are an angel, honey." Emily's face softened. Diane waited until the couple left. Then she took the 15. "This one goes into the adjustment fund," she told Emily when the young woman turned back. "What adjustment fund?" Diane's head lifted slowly. "Excuse me?" Emily swallowed. "Nothing. I just had not heard of that before." Diane stepped closer. Her voice dropped. "That is because managers handle management matters. Servers handle plates." Emily went still. Marcus's phone captured every word. At the kitchen window, Tommy the cook stopped flipping bacon. His eyes shifted toward Emily, full of worry. Maria Collins, the other server, pretended to organize straws, but her hand trembled against the dispenser. Everyone knew. Nobody moved. That was the real sickness in the room. Not just theft. A whole workplace trained to look away. Marcus took a slow sip of coffee and kept recording. Diane looked over at him once. Her gaze slid across his flannel, his worn cap, his cheap glasses. She dismissed him in less than a second. That mistake would cost her everything. By the third visit, Marcus no longer needed to wonder whether Diane Parker was stealing. He knew. He had seen enough to recognize the rhythm of it. Diane did not rush. She did not panic. She did not hide like a person doing something for the first time. She moved with the calm confidence of someone who had done wrong so often that wrong had started to feel like routine. That Thursday afternoon, Marcus came back during lunch. He wore a brown work jacket, a faded University of Georgia cap, and cheap sunglasses he kept on until he reached the booth. The lunch crowd was thinner than breakfast, but louder. Truckers from a nearby warehouse filled the counter. Two nurses ate soup near the window. A group of older church ladies shared pie at table 5, laughing with their hands over their mouths. Emily was still there. That stopped Marcus for a second. She had worked the morning shift. He knew because he had seen her at 7. Now it was past 2, and she was still moving across the floor. Slower now. Her smile was weaker. Her shoes dragged just slightly when she turned toward the kitchen. One strand of hair had escaped from her bun and stuck to the side of her face. She carried herself like her body had been asking to sit down for hours, and she kept telling it no. Diane stood by the register, checking her nails. Emily passed her with a tray. Diane caught her by the elbow. "You are staying through lunch." Emily blinked. "I was scheduled off at 2. We had a call out. I have to pick up my son from after-school care by 5, then move fast and earn the favor." Emily stared at her. Not angry, not yet, just cornered. Diane leaned closer. "You want more hours, do you not?" Emily's mouth tightened. "Yes." "Then do not make extra hours sound like a problem." Marcus saw Emily take that in. The trap was neat. If she refused, she was difficult. If she accepted, she was exhausted. Either way, Diane owned the story. Emily nodded. "Thank you for the hours," she said quietly. Diane smiled. Better. At the counter, Tommy the cook heard it through the pass window. His jaw flexed. He flipped a burger too hard, and grease snapped on the grill. Maria Collins walked past Marcus's booth with a pot of coffee. "More coffee, hon?" "Please." She poured, but her eyes stayed on Emily. "She looks tired," Marcus said, keeping his voice casual. Maria's hand paused. We all get tired, that sounded rehearsed. Marcus looked up. She met his eyes for half a second, then looked away. Diane is tough, he said. Maria gave a small, humorless breath. Tough is one word. Before Marcus could ask more, Diane called from the register. Maria less talking, more moving. Maria's shoulders closed inward. Yes, Diane. She left fast. Marcus turned his phone slightly toward the register. At table 5, the church ladies finished their pie. One of them, a silver-haired woman with a soft pink jacket, waved Emily over. Baby, you have been running yourself ragged. Emily smiled. I am fine, Mom. No, you are working hard. There is a difference. The woman slipped a folded 20 into Emily's hand. Emily froze. Oh, I cannot take it like this. Yes, you can. And you will. You were kind to us. For one brief moment, Emily's face changed. The mask cracked. Gratitude, relief, and shame all moved through her eyes at once. Thank you, she whispered. Diane saw it. Of course she did. She crossed the floor before Emily reached the service station. Emily, office now. The church ladies went quiet. Marcus followed them with the camera as far as he could. Diane led Emily into the narrow hallway near the kitchen, not fully inside the office, just out of easy earshot. But Marcus had chosen this booth for a reason. Sound carried along the tile. Diane's voice was low and hard. Hand it over. Emily's voice trembled. She gave it to me directly. And you accepted cash outside the approved process? There is no approved process for that. Silence. Then Diane laughed once. Careful. Emily breathed in. Marcus could hear it. I earned that tip. The words were barely louder than a whisper, but they landed like a match in gasoline. Diane stepped closer. Her shadow cut across the hallway wall. You earn what I say you earn. Do you understand me? Emily did not answer. Diane continued. I have been very patient with you. The slow service, the attitude, the register concerns. My drawer balanced yesterday, according to you. Tommy's voice came from the kitchen window. Her drawer was clean, Diane. Everything stopped. The grill hissed. A plate settled on the pass with a small ceramic click. Maria froze by the soda machine. Diane turned her head slowly toward Tommy. Excuse me? Tommy's face was pale, but he did not look away. I counted it with her. It balanced. Diane walked to the pass window. Her voice turned sweet, which made it worse. Tommy, unless you want scheduling reviewed, I suggest you focus on the food. The big cook stared at her for 1 second. Then his eyes dropped. Yes, Mom? That was all. Diane turned back to Emily and held out her hand. The 20. Emily looked toward Tommy, then Maria. Then the dining room full of people who did not know they were watching a small piece of a woman being taken. Her fingers opened. Diane took the bill. Good choice. Emily stood there empty-handed. Marcus kept recording, but something inside him slowed. Not his anger, something deeper. Grief, maybe. The kind that comes when you realize an injustice has become ordinary to the people living inside it. Diane returned to the register and tucked the 20 beneath the drawer tray. Not into the drawer, beneath it. Marcus zoomed in. There it was. A hiding place, a pattern, a method. Emily came out of the hallway and picked up a tray like nothing had happened. But her hands shook so badly the spoon on the plate rattled. One of the church ladies reached for her purse. The silver-haired woman touched her arm. No, Ruth, she said softly. Not while that manager is watching. Marcus heard the sentence and felt its weight. Even customers could see the fear. But fear had ruled this diner long enough. He paid his check, left no visible tip this time, and walked out with the recording saved. In his truck, Marcus called Lydia Grant. I have video of hidden cash under the register tray, he said. Good, Lydia replied. Keep going. There is more. A cook challenged her, and she threatened his schedule. That supports retaliation. Marcus looked back at the diner. How much do we need? Lydia's voice was steady. Enough that when you finally speak, nobody can pretend they misunderstood. Marcus entered the call. Through the window, he saw Emily refill coffee with red eyes and a straight back. He started the truck. Tomorrow, he would come earlier. Tomorrow, he would listen behind the office wall. Friday morning brought rain, low clouds, and the kind of gray light that made every window look tired. Marcus parked behind the tire shop before sunrise. He sat there for a moment with the engine off, listening to rain tap the roof of the truck. Today he wore a dark hoodie, a canvas jacket, and a ball cap pulled low. In the passenger seat sat a small notebook, his phone, and a printed copy of the tip policy folded into his pocket. He was not there as a customer anymore. He was there as a witness. At 6:20, the back door of Sunrise Table opened. Tommy arrived first, carrying a plastic grocery bag and a travel mug. He moved like a man already bracing for the day. Maria came next, wrapped in a raincoat, her hair damp at the edges. She checked the parking lot before going in. Then Emily arrived. She stepped out of an old silver sedan with one headlight dimmer than the other. She sat in the driver's seat for a few seconds before opening the door. Marcus could see her through the windshield. She pressed both hands to her face, then lowered them and looked at herself in the mirror. Practice smile. That was what it was. A woman rehearsing strength before walking into a place that kept taking pieces of her. She got out, locked the car, and hurried through the rain. Marcus waited 10 minutes, then entered through the front. The diner was quiet. Chairs still rested upside down on a few tables. The smell of fresh coffee had not yet beaten back the bleach from the morning mop. Fluorescent lights buzzed above the counter. Somewhere in the kitchen, metal pans clanged. Emily looked up from filling sugar caddies. "Morning," she said. Her voice was hoarse. "Morning. Sit anywhere you like. Coffee will be ready in a minute." Marcus chose the booth closest to the narrow hall by Diane's office. He set his phone near the salt shaker, camera down, recorder on. This time he cared less about video. He needed voices. At 6:45, Diane arrived, not rushed, not wet, not tired. Her car had parked right beside the back door. She came in wearing a tan trench coat, carrying a paper coffee cup from a place that charged more for one drink than Emily earned in half an hour. Diane did not say good morning. She dropped her purse in the office, then stepped into the hall. Emily. Emily appeared at once. "Yes." Diane looked her up and down. "You look rough." Emily touched the side of her hair. "I am sorry. The rain was customers do not care about rain. They care about presentation." "Yes, Mom. And I need you to stop acting fragile today. We have a regional check-in next week, and I will not have your personal drama affecting my numbers." Marcus's eyes lifted. Regional check-in. That explained part of it. Diane was building numbers, lower labor complaints, higher margins, cleaner reports, and Emily's stolen tips had become invisible profit in Diane's mind. Emily stood silent. Diane stepped closer. "Did you hear me?" "Yes, good. Also, your drawer was short again yesterday." Emily's head snapped up. "It was not." Diane smiled, soft, dangerous. "According to my notes, it was." Tommy's voice came from the kitchen. "Diane." She turned. He stood at the pass window, wiping his hands on a towel. His face was tight. "I counted that drawer. It was not short." Diane walked toward him slowly. "You seem very interested in management records lately, Tommy. I am interested in the truth." The words hung in the diner like steam over hot coffee. Maria froze behind the counter. Emily stopped breathing. Diane smiled wider. "The truth is that you are a cook with a temper problem and a history of overtime violations. Would you like me to pull those files too?" Tommy's face changed. Anger first, then fear. He had a family. Marcus could see it. The calculation, the mortgage, the insurance, the child support maybe. The thin edge working people stood on when a manager held the schedule in one hand and punishment in the other. Tommy looked down. "No. No what?" "No, Mom." Diane nodded, smart. Marcus's hand tightened under the table, but he did not move. Not yet. The breakfast rush began with rainwater on the floor and damp coats in booths. Customers came in, shaking umbrellas, rubbing hands together, asking for coffee before they sat down. Emily moved through them with quiet discipline. At table 8, a woman in a nurse's jacket counted out her cash carefully. She left $12 beside the plate and told Emily, "Honey, you are the first kind face I have seen all night." Emily smiled, and this time the smile hurt to watch. "Thank you. That means a lot." Diane waited until the nurse walked out. Then she took the 12. Emily saw it. She stood by the coffee station, one hand around the pot handle. Her knuckles turned pale. Diane noticed. "Problem?" Emily swallowed. "That was mine." The diner did not stop, but something in the air did. Maria turned slowly. Tommy looked through the pass window. Marcus kept his eyes on Diane. Diane walked toward Emily with the $12 folded between two fingers. "Yours?" Emily's lips trembled, but she did not back down. She left it for me. Diane laughed quietly. That attitude is why we keep having issues. I need my tips, Diane. Need is not policy. Emily's voice broke, but she forced the words out. My son has an appointment today. I am already behind on the copay. Diane's face showed no pity, none. Maybe if you budgeted better, you would not have to beg at work. Emily flinched. Maria whispered, Jesus. Diane turned sharply. Something to add, Maria? Maria's eyes filled with fear. No. Diane faced Emily again. You are scheduled until 3. If you leave early for that appointment, do not bother coming in tomorrow. Emily went white. The coffee pot shook in her hand. Marcus thought of his mother counting tips under a kitchen light. He thought of rent envelopes, medicine bottles, children pretending not to hear adults worry. He pressed stop on the recording, saved it. Started another. Because now this was not just theft. It was coercion. It was retaliation. It was cruelty wearing a name tag. Emily set the coffee pot down very carefully. Diane, please? Please what? Please do not do this. Diane stepped close enough that only Emily and the recorder could catch every word. Then stop making yourself a problem. Emily's eyes shone, but she did not cry. Not there. Not in front of Diane. She turned away and walked toward the restroom hall. Her steps were steady until she reached the corner. Then one hand touched the wall. Just for balance. Just for breath. Marcus watched her disappear from sight. In that moment, his plan changed. He had enough to prove theft, but by the end of the day, he would prove something worse. He would prove Diane Parker knew exactly what she was doing. Emily stayed in the restroom for 4 minutes. Marcus counted without meaning to. 4 minutes while orders stacked at the kitchen window. 4 minutes while Diane rolled her eyes and told Maria to cover the floor. 4 minutes while Tommy stared at the pass window like he wanted to break something, and knew he could not afford to. When Emily came back, her eyes were red but dry. She had washed her face. Her hair was smoothed back. Her apron was straight. That was the heartbreaking part. Even after being humiliated, she had fixed herself before returning to serve people pancakes. A man at table 2 snapped his fingers. Miss. Coffee. Emily turned at once. Yes, sir. Marcus watched her pour the coffee without spilling a drop. Diane watched her too, not with concern, with satisfaction. By 9, the rain had slowed to a steady mist. The diner filled with the second wave of customers. Office workers. Ridrees. A plumber in a muddy jacket. A grandmother with a little girl in pink rain boots. The room warmed. Plates moved. Steam rose from mugs. Emily worked harder than anyone in the building, and Diane took more. $7 from table 4, 9 from table 6, a folded 5 from the counter. Each time, Diane had a reason ready. Tax tracking, drawer adjustment, team contribution, performance balance, words that sounded official enough to scare a tired worker and vague enough to hide behind later. Marcus recorded everything. Then, just after 10, a young assistant manager arrived. Ryan Brooks. 26, clean shirt, anxious eyes. A man still new enough to want approval, and old enough to know when something felt wrong. He carried a clipboard and a stack of invoices. Diane waved him into the office. Marcus shifted in his booth. The office door did not close all the way. The old hinge stuck unless someone pulled hard. Diane never noticed details that did not serve her. Marcus did. He placed his phone inside his open menu and tilted it toward the hallway. Ryan's voice came first. I went over yesterday's cash sheet. There are tip adjustments listed under employee support, but I cannot find the matching form. Diane sighed. Because there is no form for common sense, Ryan. I thought corporate required documentation. Corporate requires results. That is what corporate requires. Marcus went still. Ryan lowered his voice. But if those were Emily's tips, should they be on payroll or paid out to her? Diane laughed softly. Emily makes more in sympathy tips than she deserves. Customers see tired eyes and a single mom story and start throwing cash at her like she is a charity jar. Ryan said nothing. Diane continued. Meanwhile, I am here 60 hours a week, keeping this place from falling apart. If I move some cash where it actually helps operations, that is management. Marcus felt the pulse in his neck. Ryan's voice came back uneasy. Where does it go? A drawer opened, paper shifted. Then the sound of bills being counted. Some goes to cover shortages. Some goes to staff incentives. Some goes where I decide it needs to go. That does not sound like the handbook. Diane's chair creaked. Listen to me carefully. The handbook was written by people who sit in offices and never deal with reality. Here, I deal with reality. Emily is slow, emotional, always asking for schedule favors. If she kept every dollar, she would still be broke by Monday because people like her do not know how to manage money. Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. Not to calm down, to keep from standing up. Ryan spoke again, quieter. She said her son needs a doctor. Then she should make better choices. The words came out clean, cold, empty. Diane was not just stealing from Emily. She had built a story in her own mind where Emily deserved to be stolen from. That was how cruelty survived. It gave itself a reason. Ryan cleared his throat. What if she complains? Diane did not hesitate. Then I document her performance. For whatever sticks. Attitude, register issues, customer delays, excessive personal calls. She is a server, Ryan, replaceable. If she makes noise, I fire her for cause. No unemployment, no reference, no problem, there it was. Clear, intent, retaliation, fraud. Marcus's phone captured every word. In the dining room, Emily helped the little girl in pink rain boots choose between chocolate chip pancakes and waffles. She bent slightly, smiling as if her own life was not being discussed like trash behind a half-closed door. Waffles are a strong choice, Emily said. But pancakes are better if you like whipped cream. The little girl giggled. Emily looked alive in that moment. Gentle, patient. The kind of woman children trusted because she did not rush them. Behind the office door, Diane kept talking. Besides, Patricia loves my numbers. Patricia Wells? Ryan asked. Regional manager, Diane said. She is coming next week. I have this location beating every store on labor control. She thinks I am district material. Off stolen wages? Ryan asked before he could stop himself. The office went silent. Marcus looked toward the hallway. Diane's voice dropped. You need to decide what kind of manager you want to be. One who survives, or one who gets sentimental about waitresses. Ryan did not answer. Good, Diane said. Now take these invoices to the back and stop asking questions that make you sound small. A chair scraped. Ryan stepped out of the office with the clipboard pressed against his chest. His face was pale. As he passed Marcus's booth, he glanced at the phone inside the menu. For 1 second, their eyes met. Ryan knew. Not who Marcus was, but what Marcus had heard. The young man looked away and kept walking. Marcus saved the recording. His hand was steady, but his chest felt heavy. People often thought injustice survived because bad people were powerful. Sometimes that was true. But just as often, injustice survived because decent people were afraid, tired, cornered, or unsure anyone would stand with them if they spoke. At 10:30, Emily approached Diane near the register. Her voice was barely there. Diane, I really need to leave by 2:30 for my son's appointment. I can come in early tomorrow. I can cover Sunday if you need me. Please. Diane smiled at a customer walking by, waited until he passed, then leaned toward Emily. You still owe me for the attitude this morning. Emily's face drained. I was not trying to have attitude. Intent does not matter. Impact does. Emily swallowed. I need that appointment. He has asthma. Diane looked down at the tip jar, then back at Emily. Then maybe you should have thought about that before questioning me over $12. Emily's lips parted. No sound came out. Diane reached into the drawer, removed a folded stack of bills, and tapped it against her palm. You know what this is? Emily stared at it. You're weak, Diane said. Or what is left of it after adjustments. Marcus felt the room narrow. Emily whispered, How much? Diane counted slowly. $15. Emily blinked. That is not right. Diane placed the bills on the counter between them. It is what you earned. No. The word escaped Emily before fear could stop it. Diane's eyes sharpened. What did you say? Emily's hands trembled. I earned more than that. Diane smiled. Prove it. Emily looked around the diner at Maria, at Tommy, at Ryan in the back hall. No one moved. Not yet. Marcus stopped recording, saved the file. Then he looked at Emily Carter standing alone in the middle of his restaurant, being dared to prove the truth while the truth sat in his pocket. And he knew the investigation was almost over. Emily stared at the $15. as if the bills had turned into something cruel right there on the counter. Her lips moved once, but no sound came out. Around her, the diner kept breathing. Coffee poured. Plates clinked. Rain whispered against the windows. But for Emily, the whole room had narrowed to Diane's hand, Diane's smile, and the money that proved how little her work was worth in the eyes of someone with power over her. "That cannot be right," Emily said. Diane tilted her head. "Careful. I worked 6 shifts this week." "And?" Emily looked at the register drawer. Her hands were shaking now. "I served the birthday table Sunday. They left 50. The nurse left 12 today. Mrs. Holloway left 20 yesterday. There was more." Diane's smile vanished. "You have been keeping count?" Emily swallowed. "I tried to. Tried to." Diane repeated it softly, almost kindly. Then her voice hardened. "That is interesting. Because employees who spend time counting tips instead of serving customers usually have performance problems." Maria stood by the soda machine, one hand pressed against her apron. "Diane," she said quietly. Diane turned just enough to look at her. "Do not." One word. Maria looked down. Emily saw it. The fear. The retreat. It hurt almost as much as Diane's theft, because she knew Maria was not heartless, just scared. They were all scared. In places like this, people did not always stay silent because they agreed. Sometimes they stayed silent because rent was due Friday. Marcus remained in his booth, his phone dark in his hand. He had to let the moment finish, not because he lacked compassion, because if he stepped in too early, Diane would say it was confusion, tension, a misunderstanding between women on a hard shift. But this was becoming undeniable. Diane picked up the $15 and pushed it into Emily's apron pocket like she was giving candy to a child. "There, take it, and be grateful." Emily did not move. Diane leaned close. "You are replaceable, Emily. There is a stack of applications in my office from people who would smile for half the trouble you cause." Something in Emily's face broke, not loudly, not dramatically. It was worse than that. Her eyes went empty for 1 second, like her body had stepped away from the pain because there was too much of it. Then the little girl in pink rain boots called from table 7. "Miss Emily, my waffle looks like a heart." Emily turned, and somehow she smiled. "It sure does, sweetheart." Her voice was warm. Marcus felt that smile in his chest. That was labor people never counted. The emotional weight. The dignity offered to strangers while your own dignity was being stripped away. At 11:15, the large family came in. 8 people. 3 generations. Grandmother in a purple cardigan. 2 middle-aged daughters. A son in a postal uniform. Children with damp jackets and bright voices. They had come from a doctor's appointment nearby and wanted breakfast food before heading home. Emily took the table. Diane gave it to her with a smirk. "Let us see if you can handle this one without drama." Emily gathered menus and approached the family. Marcus watched the shift in her posture. She was tired, hurt, almost defeated. But the moment she reached that table, she made room inside herself for them. "Good morning, folks. Let us get you warm." The grandmother smiled up at her. "Bless you, baby. It is nasty out there." Emily brought extra napkins for the children, hot tea for the grandmother, and crayons from a drawer most customers did not know existed. When the youngest boy knocked over water, she cleaned it without embarrassment. When the grandmother asked for grits without butter, then changed her mind, Emily laughed softly and said, "That is what second thoughts are for." The family noticed. People like that always noticed. They had worked jobs, raised children, counted money. They knew kindness when it cost something. By noon, the table was finished. The postal worker paid the check. The grandmother took Emily's hand. "You have a good spirit," she said. "Do not let this world make you hard." Emily's eyes shone. "I am trying not to." The grandmother folded a $50 bill into her palm. "Then let somebody be kind to you today." Emily froze. "Oh, Mom, this is too much." "No, it is not." Diane saw it from the register. Marcus saw Diane see it. The air changed. Emily closed her fingers around the bill, and for one moment, hope returned to her face. Clearly, it was almost painful. $50 meant medicine, gas, maybe groceries, maybe breathing room. Diane walked over, slow, certain. "That will need to be documented." Emily stepped back. "No." The word came out small, but it came out. Diane stopped. "Excuse me?" Emily held the bill against her apron. She gave this to me. The grandmother looked from Emily to Diane. I surely did. Diane smiled at the older woman. Company policy requires manager verification on larger tips. The postal worker frowned. Since when does a manager take a waitress's tip? Diane's smile tightened. Sir, this is an internal process. The grandmother's eyes narrowed. It sounds like stealing to me. The diner went quiet, not fully, but enough. Marcus sat forward, Diane's face flushed. She looked at Emily and now the mask slipped. Just a little. Office now. Emily did not move. Diane's voice sharpened now. The 50 trembled in Emily's hand. Her breathing grew shallow. Marcus could see the old fear rising. The fear that had been trained into her over months. Lose the job. Lose the rent. Lose the reference. Lose everything. Slowly, Emily opened her fingers. Diane snatched the bill. The grandmother gasped. Tommy cursed under his breath from the kitchen. Maria covered her mouth. Diane turned toward the register, victorious. Then Emily whispered, I cannot do this anymore. No one was meant to hear it, but Marcus did. He stood halfway, then stopped himself. Not yet. Emily walked quickly toward the restroom hall. This time she did not make it all the way inside before her shoulders folded. She caught herself against the wall, one hand over her mouth, trying to keep the sob from escaping. The little girl in pink rain boots watched from her booth, confused and quiet. Marcus looked at Diane as she slipped the 50 beneath the register tray. His phone recorded the cash, the hand, the hiding place, the crime. Then he saved the file and sent it to Lydia Grant with 3 words. We are ready. Lydia Grant called less than 5 minutes later. Marcus answered from the front seat of his truck, rain streaking down the windshield in crooked lines. His eyes stayed on the diner. Through the glass, he could see Emily moving again. Somehow, Diane stood near the register with the stolen 50 tucked beneath the tray, acting like the world had already agreed with her. I watched the file, Lydia said. Her voice had lost its usual smoothness. Marcus, that is not sloppy management. That is intentional wage theft, I know. And the earlier audio? Clear. The threat about firing her for cause? Clear. The hidden cash? On video, Lydia exhaled. Then you have enough for termination, enough for civil recovery, possibly enough for criminal referral if the local authorities pursue it. Marcus watched Emily lift a tray with both hands. She paused once, just long enough to steady herself. What about Emily? Protect her first, Lydia said. Before Diane knows she is exposed, secure payroll records, schedules, register reports, and personnel notes. If Diane has been falsifying documents, she may try to delete or alter them. Marcus had already thought of that. I am going to corporate now. Good. And Marcus? Yes, do not go in alone when you confront her. Have a witness. Have security nearby. People with something to lose do not always leave quietly. Marcus looked at Diane through the rain-blurred window. Neither do people with something to protect. He ended the call and drove downtown. By 1:30, he was inside Sunrise Table headquarters, a brick building near Midtown, with warm wood floors and framed photographs of the first diner his mother had ever worked in. Employees greeted him in the hall, but he barely slowed. Sarah Lane rose from her desk when she saw his face. Conference room, now. Bring payroll, HR, and IT. No delay. Sarah did not ask questions. Good assistants knew the difference between urgency and temper. This was urgency. Within 20 minutes, the conference room filled. Lydia joined by video. A payroll director named Helen Price opened the Peachtree Store records. IT froze Diane's manager login remotely. HR pulled every disciplinary note Diane had filed over the last 3 months. The screen filled with Emily Carter's name. Marcus stood behind Helen's chair, arms crossed. There were notes for tardiness, attitude concerns, drawer shortages, customer complaints, refusal to follow cash procedures. Helen frowned. That is odd. What? No customer complaint forms attached. No drawer reports either. Just manager notes. Sarah looked up sharply. Who approved them? No one, Helen said. They are pending review, but she marked them as active coaching records. Marcus felt the cold inside him deepen. She was building a paper trail. Lydia's voice came through the speaker. Download everything. Preserve metadata. Do not edit the files. IT did it at once. Then payroll pulled tip declarations. Emily's reported cash tips had dropped by more than half over 6 weeks. Maria's had stayed stable. Other servers showed normal variation. Only Emily had a sharp decline. Helen whispered, "That does not make sense. She works the busiest sections." Marcus said nothing. The room understood. By 2:15, they had a timeline. Missing tips, false notes, schedule changes, sudden double shifts. Emily's hours increased while her reported tips fell. Diane's performance numbers improved at the same time. That was the ugly genius of it. She did not only steal money. She turned the theft into a management success story. Sarah stood at the end of the table, pale with anger. "I sent Patricia Wells those margin reports last month." Marcus looked at her. "You did your job with the data you had. But we rewarded Diane. We rewarded a lie." The sentence sat in the room like smoke. At 3, Marcus called Patricia Wells, the regional manager. She answered cheerfully, "Marcus, this is a surprise. I need you at the Peachtree location tomorrow morning at 8. There was a pause. "Is there a problem?" "Yes, with Diane?" "With our oversight," Marcus said. "And with what happened because we trusted numbers without checking people." Patricia went silent. "I will be there. Bring no warning to Diane." "Understood." Marcus hung up. For the next hour, he prepared the confrontation with the care of a man defusing a bomb. Security would park nearby, but stay out of sight unless needed. HR would be present. Patricia would witness. Lydia would be on the phone. IT had already preserved records. Payroll began calculating estimated restitution for Emily based on table assignments, sales, and recorded incidents. The number made Helen cover her mouth. $780, she said softly. Conservative estimate over the last month. Marcus looked down at the page. That was rent. That was asthma medicine. That was groceries. That was peace of mind stolen one bill at a time. Near 5, Marcus returned to the Peachtree Diner. He did not go inside. He parked across the street and watched the evening shift change. Emily came out alone. She moved slowly through the mist toward her old silver car. Her apron was folded over one arm. Her shoulders sagged the moment she cleared the front door, as if leaving the building gave her body permission to admit pain. She sat in the car but did not drive away. Her head bowed. Marcus could not hear her from across the street, but he knew what grief looked like when it was trying to stay quiet. A minute later, Tommy stepped out the back door carrying a trash bag. He saw Emily's car. He looked around, then walked over to her driver's side window. She rolled it down. They spoke for less than a minute. Tommy reached into his pocket and pulled out folded cash. Emily shook her head hard. He insisted. She covered her mouth. Marcus watched Tommy place the money on the passenger seat, then walk away before she could give it back. That small act hit Marcus harder than he expected. Tommy was afraid, but not empty. Maria came out next. She crossed quickly to Emily's car and handed her a paper bag from the kitchen. Food, probably leftovers packed with care. Emily took it with both hands. Maria touched her shoulder. Not long, just enough. Then Maria went back inside before Diane could see. There it was. The thing Diane had not destroyed. Kindness, hidden under fear. Marcus sat in the darkening street and let that truth settle. Justice could punish Diane, but punishment alone would not heal this place. Fear had roots here now. Shame had roots. Silence had roots. Tomorrow, those roots had to be pulled out in daylight. His phone buzzed. A message from Lydia. "Everything is preserved. You are clear to proceed." Marcus looked through the diner window one last time. Diane was laughing at the register. Emily was crying quietly in her car. And tomorrow morning, the woman who thought she controlled every dollar in that diner would learn who owned the building, the cameras, the payroll system, the handbook, and the company name above the door. Saturday morning came bright and cold, the kind of Atlanta morning that made every window shine and every lie look harder to hide. Marcus arrived at 7:30 in the same worn jacket, the same cap, the same ordinary face Diane had dismissed all week. But this time he was not alone. Patricia Wells sat in a parked sedan across the street, her hands folded tightly around a paper cup of coffee she had not touched. Helen Price from payroll sat beside her with a folder on her lap. 2 security officers waited in a separate car behind the laundromat. Nobody moved yet. Marcus wanted Diane to act first. He wanted the truth to walk into the open on its own legs. Inside the diner, the breakfast rush was building. Families came in after soccer practice. Older couples settled into their regular booths. A man in a Georgia Tech sweatshirt read the paper at the counter. The room smelled of coffee, sausage, and wet wool coats warming in the heat. Emily was working table 7. She looked exhausted, but something had changed. Not strength exactly. More like a person who had run out of room to bend. Her movements were careful. Her eyes were quieter. She served everyone kindly, but the old quick apology had begun to fade from her voice. At table 9, a customer left a $10 bill beside his plate. Emily saw it. Diane saw it too. Marcus sat in booth 4 with his phone flat against the menu. Diane crossed first, same calm step, same manager smile, same hand reaching for money that did not belong to her. Emily turned from the coffee station. Diane, please do not take that. The whole diner seemed to pause by half a beat. Diane's hand froze above the bill. Excuse me? Emily's voice shook, but she stayed where she was. That is my tip. Diane straightened slowly. Her eyes swept the nearby tables, measuring witnesses, calculating tone. We are not doing this in front of customers. Then do not take it in front of customers. A spoon dropped somewhere near the counter. Tommy appeared at the kitchen window. Maria stopped beside the soda machine. Ryan stood near the office hallway with a clipboard held too tightly in both hands. Diane smiled. Emily, you need to clock out and go home. Emily went still. What? Clock out. Your attitude is unacceptable. I am scheduled until 3, not anymore. Diane picked up the $10 bill and folded it once. Marcus rose from his booth. Not fast, not dramatic. Just enough for his chair legs to scrape the tile. The sound cut through the room. Diane glanced over, irritated. Sir, please sit down. This is an employee matter. Marcus removed his cap. Then his reading glasses. Patricia, still watching from across the street, opened her car door. Inside the diner, Diane's face changed before her mouth could catch up. Her eyes widened. Her throat moved. The color drained from her cheeks in one slow wave. Marcus Bennett, she whispered. Emily turned sharply. Marcus looked at Diane, not raising his voice. Yes. The room went quiet. Forks stopped. The coffee machine hissed behind the counter like it was the only thing still breathing. Marcus stepped into the aisle. And this is not an employee matter. This is wage theft. Diane blinked hard. Mr. Bennett, I can explain. I am sure you can. You have been explaining all week. Adjustment fund, tax tracking, tip pooling, performance balance, corporate policy. He took one step closer. None of those policies exist. Emily's hand went to the edge of the counter. You are the CEO? Marcus turned to her, his voice softened. I am. And I am sorry I did not come sooner. Diane lifted one hand, trying to recover. This is a misunderstanding. I was managing cash flow during high-volume shifts. The staff has been confused about procedures, and Emily has had ongoing performance issues. Marcus pulled out his phone. You mean the false performance notes? Diane's mouth opened. Or the drawer shortages that did not happen. Tommy's voice came from the kitchen, low and firm. They did not happen. Diane shot him a look. Marcus did not let her speak. Or the recording where you told Ryan you would fire Emily because if she complained. Ryan's face went pale. Diane turned toward him. Ryan, do not say a word. Marcus tapped his phone. Diane's own voice filled the diner. If she makes noise, I fire her for cause. No unemployment, no reference, no problem. The effect was immediate. A woman at table 5 covered her mouth. The man at the counter lowered his newspaper. Emily's face crumpled, not from weakness, but from the shock of hearing the trap spoken out loud. All the fear that had lived inside her suddenly had a shape, a voice, a witness. Diane backed up one step. That was taken out of context. Marcus played the next clip. Emily makes more in sympathy tips than she deserves. Diane lunged toward the phone. Marcus stepped back. Security entered through the front door before she reached him. Quiet, professional, present. Do not make this worse, Marcus said. Diane's breathing turned shallow. Patricia Wells entered behind security, her face ashen. Helen Price followed with the payroll folder. Patricia looked at Diane. I promoted your numbers. Diane swallowed. Patricia, you lied to me. Marcus faced the staff now. Everyone here needs to hear this clearly. Cash tips belong to the employees who earn them. Management has no right to take them, hide them, punish people for asking about them, or create fake policies to cover theft. His voice is carried to every booth. If you were afraid to speak, that fear ends today. Maria began to cry silently. Tommy lowered his head. Emily stood frozen, one hand pressed to her chest. Diane's face twisted. You cannot humiliate me like this after everything I have done for this location. I made this store profitable. Marcus looked at her. You made it profitable by stealing from people who trusted you. The words hit hard, clean, final. Diane's jaw shook. I want my attorney. You should call one, Marcus said. After you leave the building. He turned to security. Diane Parker, your employment with Sunrise Table is terminated effective immediately. The diner held its breath. Diane looked around for help. No one moved. Not Ryan, not Maria, not Tommy. Not one customer. For the first time all week, Diane Parker stood alone in the room she had ruled by fear. And fear did not answer her. Diane left through the front door with security beside her, and every eye in the diner following in silence. No one clapped at first. No one cheered. Real justice did not always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it came quiet, with a fired manager clutching her purse, a waitress shaking behind the counter, and a room full of people realizing they had watched someone suffer longer than they should have. When the door closed behind Diane, Emily covered her face with both hands. Marcus did not rush her. He let the silence breathe. Then he stepped closer and spoke gently. Emily, what happened to you here was wrong. You earned your wages. You earned your tips. You earned respect. This company failed to protect you, and I am sorry. That apology did what Diane's threats never could. It broke her. Emily lowered her hands and tears slipped down her cheeks. Not loud, not messy, just honest. The kind of crying a person does when they finally stop defending themselves against a lie. I thought nobody would believe me, she whispered. Marcus nodded. I believe you, and now everyone here knows the truth. The grandmother from the big table stood slowly, one hand on her cane. That girl served us with more grace than most people show on their best day. A murmur moved through the diner. Agreement. Shame. Relief. Tommy stepped out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. I should have said more sooner. Emily looked at him. You tried. Not enough. Marcus turned to the staff. Fear makes good people quiet. That is why leaders have to remove the fear, not punish the silence. From this moment on, no one in this restaurant will lose hours, shifts, or references for reporting wage theft, harassment, or retaliation. Patricia Wells stood near the register with tears in her eyes. Marcus, I want to say this in front of everyone. I missed it. I trusted reports over people. That will not happen again. Marcus nodded once. Then we fix it. Helen opened the payroll folder. Her voice was steady but soft. Emily, based on the records we preserved and the evidence Mr. Bennett collected, our conservative estimate is that you are owed $780 in stolen tips from the past month. Sunrise Table will pay that today, with additional compensation for the harm caused and paid leave for the next week. Emily stared at her. Today, Marcus said. Emily pressed one hand to her mouth. My son has medicine waiting at the pharmacy. Then you will pick it up before lunch. Maria began crying. Tommy looked away, blinking hard. Ryan stood in the hallway, pale and ashamed. Marcus faced him. Ryan, you asked questions when you knew it could cost you. That matters. But next time, ask louder. Ryan nodded. I will. Marcus turned a bit to Emily. There is one more thing. This location needs leadership that understands dignity. Not just numbers, not just speed. People, customers, staff. The things that make a diner worth coming back to. Emily shook her head slightly, confused. I am offering you the assistant manager position at this store. Effective after training. Full salary. Benefits. And when you work the floor, every tip you earn stays yours. Emily could not speak. The diner went still again, but this silence felt different. Lighter. Like a window had opened. Me? She finally said. I am just a server. No, Marcus said. You are the person who kept serving with kindness while someone tried to break you. That is not small. That is leadership. The grandmother tapped her cane once. He is right, baby. A small laugh broke through Emily's tears. It was fragile, but it was real. 3 months later, Booth 7 looked out on a different restaurant. The walls had fresh paint. A clear sign by the register read, "Cash tips go directly to the employee who earned them. Management never handles tip money. Questions may be reported directly to corporate." The tip jars were transparent. The schedules were posted fairly. The staff moved with energy instead of fear. Emily Carter walked the floor in a clean blue manager's shirt, her name tag straight, her shoulders no longer folded inward. Tommy ran the kitchen with calm authority. Maria trained a new server with patience. Ryan handled invoices at a corner table, double-checking every line, because he had learned what silence could cost. Marcus sat in booth 7 with coffee cooling in front of him. Emily came by with the pot. "More coffee, Mr. Bennett? Only if you stop calling me that." She smiled. "All right, Marcus. How is your son? Better, breathing easier. He says I boss people around now." "You do. I listen first," she said. "Then I boss people around." Marcus laughed softly. That was the sound his mother would have loved. Not the laugh itself, but what it meant. A workplace healing. A woman standing tall. A child with medicine. A team no longer afraid of the person holding the schedule. Emily reached into her apron and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "He made this for you." Marcus opened it. A child's drawing, a diner with yellow windows, a woman in blue, a man in a baseball cap. Across the top, in careful handwriting, it said, "Thank you for helping my mom." Marcus looked down for a long moment. Power, he had learned, was not proven by how many people obeyed you. It was proven by who felt safe when you entered the room. He folded the drawing carefully and placed it inside his jacket. Outside, morning light spread across Peachtree Road. Inside, coffee poured, plates moved, and people worked without fear. And that was the real victory. If this story reminded you that every worker deserves dignity, fairness, and the right to keep what they earned, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters. And stay close, because there are more stories of courage, justice, and ordinary people finally being seen.